What's up, guys? It's me. I'm back. So I was just playing around with like some paint scheme ideas, like marking that section out, putting some tape on the hood, and just, as you're doing this, you get excited. You want to kind of play around with the design a little bit. So we're not going that way. We're just going to take it off. So what I'm going to do now is flip my hood scoop around and scuff it with about, I think this is like a 40 grit Doka disc that I'm using. I'm using an angle grinder, an air angle grinder, and I'm just scuffing up the areas where we're going to be epoxying to the hood. Alright, so that's pretty much all I'm doing right here. Pretty simple process. You always want to scuff and grind where you're going to be gluing, and we're going to be epoxying this thing and screwing it down. So continue watching the process. Enjoy. So we're just mixing up the 3M panel bonding epoxy 08115. It's a really good epoxy. Now I could have also grinded all the way down to metal, but it's not necessary with this product as long as you have a good tooth sanded with like 80 grit or 40 grit. It really bonds very, very hard. So that's what we're doing. We're just going to be laying it on our bolt areas. You can see that I loaded it up because I just wanted to get that section so when I tighten the bolts up, it holds and grabs really well. And we're just going to place it there, snug it and bolt it from the bottom. We're not going to do it too hard, and then we're going to mix a couple more batches here and fill the seam to make it really, really hard. And then once that's done, we're just going to sand it and shape it with like 100 grit to 80 grit, depending on the areas. Sometimes you're going to want to just knock some high spots down quickly with 80 grit, and then once you get smoother, you can move down to 100 grit or so. Same thing over here. I'm just filling in the corners with a lot of epoxy to just give it that strength. I also did the same thing in the middle of the hood scoop there. I just filled it with epoxy. Okay, so this takes about 3 hours to fully cure. Then you can start shaping it with your 80 grit or 100 grit sandpaper. All right, so we put in a couple of hours today. We basically got the thing glued on. We used epoxy around the whole side, and we just put some filler over here. So when I epoxied it, as you saw in the video, I put heavy epoxy in this corner. In the middle, I built it up, and also on this corner. The rest here I just filled with body filler. It's not that bad. It's just to keep it from squeezing like this. You know what I mean? So it's nice, and it's getting nice and hot now. It's drying. It's going to be nice and solid. The back is going to be solid, like one piece, and I'm not going to worry about it cracking. I really doubt that it's going to ever crack, especially that we have epoxy on the sides here and also underneath with a cushion. We put a thick cushion of epoxy under there, so this is going to dry hard like a rock. I have to shape the back. I think it's too sharp. We're not going to leave it like this. We're going to shape it and make it round. So we're going to make all of this back area look a lot better. This is just rough draft. So when we sand the epoxy tomorrow, we'll sand this filler, and then we're going to shape the back, maybe another coat of filler here, and then basically 2K prime. If we have to put a little bit of filler in some of the pockets over here, low pockets, then we'll just use some body filler for that. It's going to be very, very little, if any. Okay, so we're just using our DA to cheat and just cut down some of these high edges. I think I'm using like 100 grit here. Anywhere between 100 and 80 grit. If you're using 100 grit and you feel like it's not cutting quick enough, slap on some 80 grit and just shape it. Okay, and that's what we did here. And after making this video, while editing this, the car has been actually out and running for about 6 months now, you know, driving over bumps and everything, and it hasn't cracked. It's on really, really good even till this day. So the product is really good. I use this epoxy for doing body kits, molding. You can mold plastic to metal and everything in between. So here's another one of my tricks. To get into tight areas, you can use a paint stirrer as a block. And I like to use the orbital sticky paper like this. You just wrap it around it, and then you can get into tight areas like we need to get into to do some sanding in there. And all I'm doing here is just filling the low areas and giving it some extra passes where I see it needs body work. Like this whole section was a little low here, so that's what I had to do. And yes, this type of custom bodywork does take a lot of time. You know, I put a good, maybe I would say 7 to 10 hours on bodyworking this hood. You know, not straight, but a couple hours over a few days, you know. It just takes time to do all of this, because sometimes you just don't want to work on it non-stop. You want to take a break and do something else for the rest of the day, you know. But it does take time if you want it to look good, you know, doing the bodywork process, taking your time, shaping it, laying more filler, shaping it again, laying more filler, shaping it again. It's a time, you know, time taking process, but in the end it's worth it because it looks really, really good and molded one piece if that's something you want to do. Now, when doing custom work like this, you know, you're going to go over with Bondo at least 4 passes, sometimes 6, sometimes up to 8 passes, because you're trying to get the shape right. All right. So if we look in here, we can see, look, it needs a little bit of filler in those dark areas there. You see it? A little low area in there. So I still need to put some filler in here. And of course, we're building this front piece up. Okay, if we can see, we need some filler in here. What I want to do is kind of blend this piece coming down custom. I don't want to just have it looped. I want to have the sharp edge come all the way down. So I'm making the Bondo, the filler, pop here. Pop from the hood, as you can see. Right, it's gonna come. I gotta build it out a little bit more. Okay, so that's what I'm working on here. Okay, so we're gonna use the block and shape it. It's gonna look really good when it's done. So the back is looking good as well. As you can see, this is what we built out. This part right in here, right? Because when I cut it with the hacksaw, this section, it was in an angle too much when I cut it. So I kind of cut that out, whereas here, I had a better cut, right? So if we take a look on the back side, we can see that this is still needs to be filled in. It's still low here. Here we're getting pretty flush, okay? Here we're pretty much flush as well. So on the next coating of filler, I will fill just this little bit here, in here, maybe across the top a little. Okay, then we're gonna sand it, block it. Then after we get this straight, okay, then if I want, I can round up here, so it's not as sharp. Because right now it's a sharp cut. It lines up with the hood, as you can see. Okay, with the shape of the hood. But I want to round it. I don't want it too sharp. I mean, it could be sharp because this part of the hood is sharp, right? So we'll see. We'll see how I decide. I'm going to round it off a little bit, not a lot. But we can take a look and see what we cut off. Actually, this is the piece. This was the piece that we cut off of the back. All right, this was like this. Okay, as you can see, I didn't want to finish it in the middle of the hood like that. It looked funny. I wanted to cut it, and this is the shape that we're getting. Okay, so you know, it is what it is. Sometimes you're gonna go 4 or 5 passes to get it the way you want, even more. I think I'm on my 5th or 6th pass of making filler and applying in these sections here. Okay, so just giving you an update, and I'm gonna make another batch right now, lay it in here, some on this side. This side's looking pretty good. Maybe a little bit. I see a dark spot right in here. Okay, so let's go ahead, mix up a little filler quickly, and get it done. We're pretty much almost there. I would say another hour or so of shaping, and we're ready for primer. So this is pretty much it for body work. What I'm doing now is just sanding the rest of the hood down with 320 grit, going over the whole area, and then we're gonna sand the whole hood, get it ready for a 2K primer. Now 2K primer, you can safely fill, a 150 grit if you wanted to, but I like to try to get it down as little fine as possible to at least a 280 to 320 grit, and then I'll lay 2 or 3 heavy coats of 2K filler primer to fill all of our imperfections. Then we could wet sand that and get ready for paint. So I'll see you in the next series. I hope you enjoyed. Thanks.